guys, and welcome to the DBGA Podcast, a podcast where we interview top-level executives inside leading and growing companies in the beauty and e-commerce industry. Excited to have our guest today, Ryan Margolin. We'll be diving into his story and a little bit about what his company does and some engaging insights into the beauty industry. So I'll go ahead and kick it off to you, Ryan. Could you please introduce yourself and tell a quick snippet of your story and your background prior to working at Pro Hair Labs?
So my name's Ryan Margolin. I'm the CEO of Professional Hair Labs. It's a family-run business owned by myself and my two brothers, Daryl and David. So the company started in 1994. Since then, the whole mission and I suppose the services of the company have evolved and developed into much more than it was when it had originally started or what we originally envisioned. So my journey into the whole thing was, back in, 2008 when the economic crash happened. I was located in Ireland, and sales and marketing was kind of my forte. I had, most of my jobs had, required some level of sales or customer service experience. And then naturally marketing kind of developed from there. I gained a really big interest in it. And what happened was then when the crash happened, I was kind of looking for other opportunities. I was working in a sales-based position in one of the industries that was hit heaviest, which was the building industry. And what ended up happening from that point was a conversation opened with my father. So he had started Professional Hair Labs back in 1994. And the conversation was, really straightforward. He was like, look, my company just isn't performing the way that I want it to. I'm not happy with certain things. I'm convinced that there's more, there's more opportunity than what's coming our way at the moment. And he asked, did I want to move to Florida to see what could be done? So initially, myself and my wife had one daughter at the time. And, we were considering it, and we said, no, look, we'll stay and we'll look at some other options as to what to do next. But in hindsight, then we thought about it and we said, you know what, let's just commit a year to going and seeing what happens. So that's what we did. So in 2009, it was April of 2009, we moved to Florida. So I spent the first 3 months learning about the business. I had grown up in the hair replacement business. Look, my mother was a master hair technician. My father was a business owner. So, they owned hair replacement studios all through my childhood. And this was a little bit different, though. This niche of the industry, it was products-based, not service-based at the time. So I learned enough to kind of realize very quickly that there was 3 key areas that were really struggling: sales, operations, and marketing. So we, built a new strategy and a new plan. We invested a little bit of money. And during that time, opportunities kind of aligned quite well because my dad's company had this base formulation of this water-based solution, which was an adhesive product. And it performed very well, but it still didn't have water or oil resistance, which we knew long-term was going to be required to provide, the ultimate performance that customers needed. So it aligned quite well when I moved there that, there was a company that was developing this type of technology for adhesive products. So we went back to the drawing board and reformulated the product and used this and developed it to the point where it was ready to sell. So, at the end of 2009, we launched it to market, and we did the old school direct mail campaign. Simple postcard, front and back. Front was the new product, the benefits, the features. And on the back was, some testimonials from a couple of key industry leaders. And there was only 3 of us on the team at the time. And I had manually built over that period of 3 months, an Excel database of 5,000 hair replacement studios. So I had a really good understanding, and that was painful. I had a really good understanding of the different states and the different areas in the United States where there was, collectives of hair replacement studios, and then also in some areas where there wasn't so many. But we decided, look, because there's only 3 of us, we're not going to send all 5,000 out at once. We simply don't have the resources to handle any potential incoming calls. I mean, it could have been crickets for all we knew. Nobody might have called. So we split it up into 3 batches. We sent out the first one. We waited a couple of weeks. We sent out the second one, waited another couple of weeks, and then the third one. The phone started ringing off the hook. Everyone wanted to try it. So they, the initial thing is they buy 1 bottle, they try it. And then what happened after that is they started to call back and they'd order 5 bottles or 20 bottles, 25 bottles or more. And within 18 months, we tripled revenue. So we realized we had validated the product at that point, and we started to look how we could further develop the U.S. market and some of Canada and Mexico. But more importantly, I was at a point then, kind of by the end of 2010, where I realized, personally, I wanted a different path for where I wanted to raise my daughter and ultimately any other kids we had in the future. So we moved back to Ireland, and we moved back with a plan to open an EU headquarters. And that's what we did. So I was really excited about it. It was a great opportunity to, start to explore a market that I've never worked in. And I was thinking to myself, okay, look, I've learned a hell of a lot over the last 18 months. I'm going to take all those learnings and I'm going to apply them to growing the EU marketplace. And that's exactly what we did. And within 3 months, I realized I had fallen flat in my face. Nothing, absolutely nothing. No customers, no leads. Doors were being shut on my face, left, right, and center. And that was kind of the first big learning curve for me, was that the way people do business in Europe was much, much different than in the USA. And I had to adapt, and I had to learn that, and I had to understand that, even from country to country, it was different, never mind, the EU as a whole. So I spent about 6 months changing, my communication methods and how we approach people. And eventually we got those 1 or 2 leads that turned into reliable distribution opportunities. So we started to build, the brand that way. So that took quite a long time. And that kind of led just to the next part of the journey, which, we can get into at a later point in the conversation, because there was a lot of key changes that had to happen in those stages of growth. But I think that for the most part, those few formative years for me, delving into, I suppose, doing it all yourself, really showed me that, look, at the end of the day in business, look, no one's coming to save you. You've got to be your own hero sometimes. So that's kind of where it all started for me.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing this. And so you kind of touched upon how you got into this industry, but what is about your job or industry that you're passionate about?
It's the safety aspect. So I have to move back again now to kind of explain a little bit about that. So the reason Professional Hair Labs was started was because my mother, as a master hair technician, had worked with chemicals and products over the years that she got chemical poisoning from. But because the industry was not regulated either by the FDA or any other governing body, manufacturers were producing products for use on skin, which contained, toluene, xylene, hexane. They're all ingredients which are ultimately derivatives of gasoline, and they were marketing them for use on the skin. So no matter how well ventilated the areas, these are really toxic products that ultimately had, a health impact on my mother, but also thousands of other, technicians, across the United States over a period of years. So that's why I'm passionate about what I do, because at the foundations of everything that we do, safety comes at the forefront of it all. We then move on to performance. So that's where my motivation and my passion comes from. Now, I've developed other passions throughout the years based upon that, but that's really where it all started.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing it. I think it's a very inspiring story. And now you've been in this industry for a while. So based on your experience, what are the current trends in the market that you are aware of? What winds are blowing? What are you noticing?
So it depends on what hat that I'm wearing on the day. So like our business is broken up into 3 sections. So we have our own brand, which is, Professional Hair Labs, Ghost Bond. We have a private label side of the business, and we have our custom formula business. And all 3 bring, 3 very different needs for clients. So I think from our brand, from the Ghost Bond and Professional Hair Lab side, people are looking for, more flexible products. Look, if they're wearing wigs, for example, some people like to leave them on for a period of time, and others like to change them really quickly. In December, we launched a product to market that we had been working on for a couple of years, which allowed people to peel the adhesive off rather than remove it with an actual, solvent-based remover or a soy-based product that we supply for the skin. So when we tailored the product to match the need of the marketplace, we saw a huge shift in take up of that product. A lot of celebrity stylists were using it. A lot of talent was using it because it would allow them the opportunity to go into shows such as, say, the Met Gala or the Grammys or any other award ceremony. And if they were performing or presenting, they could change their look within a matter of 20 minutes. They didn't have to wait days or weeks, because the adhesive was so strong. So that was one of the trends from the professional hair lab side. From the private label side, the biggest trend at the moment is, what we see, and I can only speak from kind of my experience, a lot of companies are looking for a way to etch their mark in the industry without having to drop 50 or 60, 70, 100 grand into the brand. So that's the beauty about what we do, because we built quite a decent brand in our industry. When we go to manufacture our products, we carry a huge amount of different types of ingredients off the shelf, which allow us then ultimately to create catalog products that people can come in and pick low quantities of, and they can supply to their customers, and they don't have to spend, tens of thousands. They might get away with spending a few thousand. So that's one of the biggest trends in the marketplace right now. People looking, especially, say influencers or, celebrities or talent, they're looking for a way to diversify they're looking for a way to just diversify their own portfolio, because their money is really driven off of attention. Whereas if you're building a brand, attention is a big part of it, but you've got a physical product behind it. So that's the way the industry, in my eyes, is swinging at the moment. And, same goes for the custom formulation as well. You have companies that are coming in, and when they undertake a custom formula product, the trends are kind of ingredient based. It's like, you've got specific ingredients that are now scientifically proven to have certain benefits for the skin or for health. And you see more and more formulas trying to lean that way, integrate a little bit of it or integrate a lot of it, depending on, what price point the product is sitting on the shelf. So it is all becoming very ingredient based industry, where there's certain ingredients that are hot, and then there's certain ingredients that have their moments and they dissipate, and there's other ones that just stay for the long run.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it's very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing this. Now, I want to learn more about your company. So could you tell me about Pro Hair Labs and what products and services are over at your company?
Yeah, so it's really straightforward. Professional Hair Labs has the Ghost Bond brand under its umbrella. That was launched back in 2009. And it's become the global leader in cosmetic bonding. So when people, whether they wear wigs, just for leisure, because they want to change it up, or whether they're wearing, hair systems or wigs because they have a health condition, we have products that have been developed to safely service their needs. That the Ghost Bond brand has been, because of its popularity, there's been other challenges that have come up over it with counterfeits and stuff. But that's really predominantly what Ghost Bond is. Now, into the future, what does that look like? The Ghost Bond brand is expanding into kind of more multicultural hair care. So you're talking a lot of, foaming mousses and braid gels and eyebrow gels and waxes, hair growth serums, which, look again, through scientific, studies, there's specific ingredients that are being introduced to the marketplace that have, just shown us absolutely phenomenal results. So there's a huge expansion of that line going on at the moment into the end of this year. So we're planning on launching that early next year with the aim of, positioning it rather than every brick and mortar beauty supply store, in the United States and throughout the rest of the world. We're looking at more of a mass retail approach. So like any business, you have to know what your next move is. If you keep doing the same thing over and over, you'll get away with it for a period of time and it'll go well. But like anything, everything evolves and you can't stay in the one place. You have to have that future vision of what the brand could be, or being strategic enough to know where it should be.
Yeah, definitely agree with this. And you kind of touched upon this already, but I really want to give you the chance to really dive into this topic. So what unique value do Professional Hair Labs products bring to your customers?
So there's twofold. So the first one is, as we touched base on earlier, or one of our unique selling points is that we can service the fast beauty industry, which is products off a shelf that don't require a huge amount of quantities. And depending on the quantity, we can make adjustments to the formula to be more exclusive to the brand that's launching it. And then secondly, we are the actual manufacturers. In our niche of the industry, there's not a single company that is manufacturing their own products. And the simple way that customers can see this is when they reach out for customer service. We have answers to the questions that they need that others just simply can't provide, because most manufacturers won't either, number one, take the time to provide it or put in the effort to share the information with the industry as a whole. And that's one of the big things that I believe in. It's that, how are you supposed to learn, improve, or move forward if you're not willing to share? So, education is a huge part of what we do. Now, there could be better ways in which we do it, more effective ways to get to a larger audience. But we do the best we can with the resources we have at the moment, making sure that every client that gets in touch with us has the information that they need to make an educated decision about the products that they're using, or where they want to where they want to position themselves in terms of the types of products that they're going to choose to use long term.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing this. And now, you mentioned a lot of things earlier in this conversation, the fact that you have to keep innovating because it's a very dynamic industry, the fact that when you started doing business in Europe, you have to adapt to the different cultures and different markets that there are out there. So now, what are some of the challenges of being the CEO of Professional Hair Labs? What do the day-to-day challenges look like for you?
Yeah, so if you would have asked me this, say, 7 or 8 years ago, the challenges were really all systems based, because it was when you leave the high 6 figures into the 7-figure range, a lot of it becomes about systems and making sure that the systems are functional and that they don't let you down. But as you start to grow through, the mid to high 7 figures and into the 8 figures, it becomes more about, transformational interactions rather than transactional. So it's about leading people and leading the team to be confident enough in themselves and their abilities to go towards the goal. Everyone knows what the goal is. We don't need people looking over their shoulders every day to make sure that it's done, because I feel like when you start to get into that, place where you have to micromanage people and look over their shoulders to make sure the work is getting done, that's a huge waste of resources and time. So we like to we like the more transformational management side in this company, where it's like, look, guys, here's the goal. These are the key points and the steps that we need to do on a weekly or quarterly basis to get to that goal. Let's go get it done. And everyone just goes and gets it done. So within that, going back to your original question, there are a lot of challenges. You have to be able to communicate very well. Communication is the key part of all this. If you're not communicating, everything falls apart and breaks down, because no one knows what the expectations are. So it's about constant reassurance, constant communication. It's about dealing with problems, head on, which again is a big challenge, because not everyone is wired that way. Look, when you look inside of a company and, there's a lack of communication, there's a lot of stress that builds up because of that lack of communication. And if we look at kind of stress at its core, it's, or anxiety, usually they come from, the core parts of yourself that you're not, dealing with or communicating something effectively. So when you have that inside of a company and you have the right leadership team in place that can communicate, you'll find in a lot of cases, a lot of those problems are automatically, they dissipate. So that's on the people side. From my position on, let's say, the operation side, we have a lot of legal problems with, counterfeits. Look, our brand is highly counterfeited across the world. So every single day we have a team of investigators on the ground globally that do test buys in different locations. A lot of that information is given to us from our own feedback we get from customers. But more importantly, we get a lot of data from one of the pieces of software that we developed for our company, which in turn will ultimately be offered to the hair and beauty industry, called Clarity Codes. This gives us real-time data of hotspots of counterfeits that customers themselves, when they buy the product, can actually report to us via an app. So they can give us information like where they bought the product, photos of the product, receipts, And we can then do one of two things. We send our own investigators in to do some test buys, ultimately, which leads us to getting more counterfeit products off the streets. So that's another part of the operational challenges. And then you look at sales. Look, it's a competitive marketplace. It's quite cutthroat. You've got a lot of competitors that are coming in and trying to undercut the industry by selling subpar products. And it's about being able to strategically look at how you navigate those waters, because ultimately we're a premium brand. And the reason we're premium is simply because everything we manufacture is done to European ISO standards, which ultimately, from ingredients and processes, those cost on the foundations of it all money. We're not just throwing a bunch of product into a big vat, mixing it up and throwing it out, and selling it. It doesn't work like that. So that's a strategic side of the business where you have to navigate and constantly be showing customers, look, you do have a choice, but let us give you the education behind us to show us, or to show you why it's more beneficial to be looking, our way rather than a competitor's way. So that's another challenge in itself. I mean, every day in my role brings something new. I try my best to stay out of the day-to-day operations, but naturally, as a business owner and someone who's really been a part of really the company from a ground up. I mean, I started by filling bottles, on the warehouse floor while I was doing all of this work on the sales and marketing side to learn about all the products, how they work, how they're supplied. Because unless you have an understanding and experience of, how something is put together, it's going to be very difficult for you to fix it or actually, improve it. So yeah, look, every day brings something new. For me, I wouldn't have it any other way. Look, I mean, there's days where you love what you do, and then there's days where you really dislike what you do. And I think if you come into work every day where, somebody says, I love every minute and every hour of what I do, I just don't think that's a very honest answer, no matter where you are. You just have to become comfortable with the fact that if your business is growing, and as it should be, it will always feel broken in some way. And if it's not feeling broken, that means things are a little bit too complacent, and you can be rest assured within a short period of time, there's going to be a lot of pain that's going to be on the back of that complacency.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for sharing. And based on that, what would you say is the type of mindset that is needed to be a successful CEO?
I think it depends on the company. I think it depends on the industry. I think it depends on how you want your culture to be. But I think at the foundation of it all, when you're running a company, you have to be adaptable. You have to listen. And there was something that was taught to me by, someone I worked with for a decent period of time. And he always said to me, clarity over confrontation. And basically what that means is that don't assume anything. Even if something is right there in front of you, always get clarity before you act on something. Because what happens is, in a high amount of the time, and this is just human nature, we're not right. And that's people make mistakes, and that's just the natural part of just our makeup. So to be a successful CEO, I think you just need to be adaptable. You need to listen. I think you need to be highly driven, because, look, it's going to require a lot of hours. And you know what? There's nobody patting you on your back. You're the guy, you're the fall guy for everything. If something is not working in a business, ultimately, by the time it gets up to your desk, you're the guy responsible for it, or the woman responsible for it, should I say. And look, yeah, in most cases, I just think you just have to be totally all in on what you're doing. As an entrepreneur, I think everyone has a million and one different ideas on a daily basis on what they'd love to do or new companies they'd love to start. But realistically, if you're to give it your everything, how many of those can you really start in any one given year? Maybe one if you're lucky, and you have to have the understanding of what it takes to build a team around you. And that's one of the hardest parts, of being a CEO, is learning how to let go of things sometimes as well. Because, as the company grows, there are certain tasks that you will be doing that you will have to let go of to give to somebody else in order for you to move on to the next thing. And being, I suppose, accountable to yourself for where you're spending your time is another big part of being, an executive or a CEO or anything. So what I do personally is that it's been a little while since I've done it now, but I'm getting to that point again. But I do a time study. And basically it's broken up into 15-minute intervals, and I do it over a period of 2 weeks every day. And every 15 minutes, I'll record what I'm doing at that point. And at the end of those 2 weeks, everything is going to fall into one of three categories. It's either going to fall into strategic, tactical, or self-care. And, as an executive or CEO, if you're finding yourself in a high percentage of tactical, you need to actually make a list of what those tactical things are. You need to do one of two things. You either need to offload them to somebody who's currently on the team, or you need to realize that the tactical, procedures or the tactical tasks that you're doing merits the hiring of another role specific to what you're doing. And you have to let them go. If you're not spending most of your time in strategic with a good amount of time in self-care, you will burn out, and there's nothing noble about that. Or, there's no warriors. It's like you have to take care of yourself, because if you're not right, you won't be right for other people. And if you're not right for other people, they have nowhere to turn to when the real tough questions need to be answered or when the real help needs to be given.
Yeah, that's very true. Thank you so much for sharing this. And now I want to transition a little bit into a different topic because, as you know, we're a data analytics company. So I'm always curious to hear about other people's experiences when it comes to data analytics in the industry. You mentioned that you're using a software internally, but in your experience, how does data influence decision making and strategies in the beauty industry?
I think it's vitally important. I didn't pay enough attention to it in the beginning. I think we could have probably sped up our growth process a lot more, which in turn would have caused more problems. But look, you can't be afraid of those either. They happen every day. But I think it is vitally important to collect as much data as you can on the people engaging with your brand and your customers and clients, because they will be the ones to give you either the feedback, or their engagement will be the exact touch points of data that you're going to need to make decisions for future products. You can't always just turn around and look at what your competitor is doing, because what you don't know is that whether those products or those things that your competitors are doing is actually providing any value to not only the marketplace but also to their own company. So you look at what they're doing and you think they're making a bigger impact, but if you don't have the data behind that to show that, or the information, you're really just taking a guess. And look, I'm a huge believer in, making sure that you're doing two things. You're either choosing to listen to the right people, or you're choosing to read the right data. Because if any of those two do not align, you could set yourself off on a path that is either, depending on the scale of your company, it could be an insanely expensive mistake, or it could waste years of your time, which again is an insanely expensive mistake.
Okay, yeah. Definitely agree with this. And okay, can you elaborate a little bit and share some insights on the role of data analytics in understanding consumer preferences and trends within your own company?
Yeah. So, I'll share with you what we use. Like Salesforce is a huge part of what we use in our business, and we have a huge amount of automation built into our processes to automate and digitalize as much of the simple stuff as we can. But when we look at, say, units sold, and we look, which ultimately can lead us to a bunch of other pieces of information, such as, is our product seasonal? Do we need to be running certain promotions in certain seasons to make sure that we're keeping the sales up? Is there a slowdown? Is there a change? Why is that change? From a product cycle perspective, everything that we do is kind of run through Salesforce, and we run the reports off that, which is ultimately connected to our invoicing system and ERPs and everything. So on a product cycle, that makes the most sense. Now, from a product decision making of what we choose to do next, that comes from a different point of view. Sometimes we would, outsource the data to come from, different companies who run surveys. We have some of our marketers, our marketing team that actually, get reports. Nielsen, would be one of them. We analyze those pieces of data and see where, the beauty industry is going, which in turn will influence what our product development processes look like. But for our own brand, say Ghost Bond, it looks a little bit different. We have such a good hold on, what because we were one of the first inside of that niche of the industry. So we attend a lot of trade shows. We speak to a lot of our customers. We're always on the phones with them, getting information on what's coming in, what are customers asking for. I mean, this goes down to simple things of like, look, we're a manufacturer, but we have, one of the pieces of feedback we got from, say, huge amount of clients in the US over the phone or at shows was that, look, there's a couple of accessories that are really specific to, this industry that people are just buying hand over fist. And it's like, okay, cool. Look, we're a manufacturer, but we'll do the accessories too. And then we bring those accessories in. So, speaking to people and keeping in touch with the customers really drives a lot of our decisions when it comes to the Ghost Bond brand, because we have such market penetration with our adhesives and our prep products that we have those opportunities to constantly be in touch with with thousands of clients who actually give us this feedback on a daily basis. Secondly, we look at, some of the analytics on our own websites, which is a good thing. Look, we run, so on our websites, we would analyze the search results that people are typing in looking for different products. That's one side of it. The other side of it is that we have our own Amazon store where we spend, I'll openly share, we spend well over $1 million a year on advertising. The data we get back from that, especially around the automatic campaigns where you're looking at, all the crazy stuff people are actually searching for. You see patterns in that, and you see what you're spending your money on, that's driving the clicks, and ultimately, that helps you, refine your campaigns and not spend so much money. But that gives you also product development ideas as well, because if somebody's searching for something and there's a high amount of searches for it leading back to your, connecting to your product somehow, you need to pay attention to those things. So, our ad reports drive a large amount of our discussions around product development. We have a lot of different touch points that all just collate into, single reports that we review on a weekly and monthly basis. So, look, the data that, that's required inside of the, of the hair or beauty industry is much more important than most, to be honest, because, how are you supposed to know what the trends are or what's coming up, if you're not able to collect this information? You're just shooting in the dark. And I think that's why a lot of brands actually fail, because they do one of two things. They either don't understand how to, get the data, they don't have the budget to spend to get the data, or they don't actually know that, look, in some cases, there's people out there to assist with getting that data. So yeah, there's many touch points you can actually expand on within that.
Thank you so much for sharing this. And I couldn't agree more with everything that you said. Now, I'm a little curious. What are the projects for Professional Hair Labs? What is your vision for the next 12 months?
For the next 12 months, we've just expanded our operations in Ireland from 10,000 feet to 50,000 square feet. So in Florida, where we have our other location, by July, we're going to be finished our next expansion project, which is going to bring our operations up to 27,500 square feet. So our focus is, for the next 12 months, is to develop more markets for our Ghost Bond brand, because look, we're in quite a lot of countries at the moment. Some of those countries are actually just full of counterfeits. So we have to kind of work strategically to flip that around, take advantage of the brand exposure, do the damage to the brand reputation, because the products are that bad from the counterfeit side. We have to just do and spend some money to work on redeveloping those markets. So next 12 months for Ghost Bond, that's what that looks like. We're looking to, focus in on our key select countries, develop those, and get more products into the hands of people who need it. On the private label and custom formula side, look, mass retail is a channel we're focused on at the moment. We're exploring opportunities with retailers to see what they need and what solutions that we can provide for that. Because again, look, when you're running a business and you have different angles or different sides to the business, you always have to be very mindful and pay attention to the fact that, if you've got a certain channel that's, a little bit more profitable than another, if you're doing more of the not so profitable stuff, it's going to eat those margins. And ultimately, at the end of the year, when you have a goal set or where you have your target margin set, you have to be very mindful that you're not running away too far in one direction without making sure there's stability and balance in the other one. So look, those are kind of our two avenues for the next 12 months. And look, we're in the process of putting plans in place for 2025 as to how we're going to reach those goals. But yeah, look, it's all just a journey.
Yeah, yeah. Well, exciting things coming then. And now I have a last question. It's a loaded one, but I like to ask it because I think it's a good way to wrap things up. What are some of the most important things you've learned in your career?
So, yeah, there's a few things really. If like it depends, because look, I think in business, I believe there's not really business problems. They're really personal problems reflecting in your business. And whenever you face something that's of high magnitude or that's really difficult to solve, if you cannot solve it on your own, which again is there's a benefit of having a good team around you, but if you can't solve it on your own, you're just simply not the person that you need to be to run your company, which means you have to improve. So I think my lessons personally, I think it all comes back to personal development. And like I said earlier, I think one of the key things you have to realize is that look, nobody is coming to save you. You have to be willing to just work for quite some time, with no applause and no recognition. And when things get tough, you kind of have to just be your own support and be able to work on your own. So that was a big thing. One of the other big things I learned is that you kind of need to learn to, I suppose, manage your focus and not your time, because look, I mean, you can manage your time all you want, but by being present in the moment and focusing on what you have to do, time kind of becomes irrelevant. I've learned it's about realizing we're all different, and some people are the 4 a.m. guys that like to wake up and get ahead of the game, but then there's highly successful people that aren't that. They're the 9, 10 a.m. guys who like to get up and have their cup of coffee, and they get their best hours between, say, 10 and 12 or 10 and 1. And it's about really being in touch with yourself and realizing who you are, and not being afraid of what people say about it. Like, you look at people around that think if they're not this 4 a.m. person, that they're not efficient enough or effective enough. And that's just simply not true. When it comes to, kind of managing your focus as well, it's about removing distractions. You see, when people, I've learned this, like, when people like at their core try to please people. And, when you try to manage your time, you're almost adding more things to the scale to keep people happy. They're almost adding more things to your plate. Really, in order to manage your focus and, effectively in turn your time, you have to subtract. It's like you just have to take things away until there's just zero distractions and you're totally focused on what you're doing. And I learned that a long time ago, because as you start to grow, everyone is going to want a piece of either your time, or they're going to want, that they're going to want to get, some sort of knowledge from you, or they're going to want to take something from you. And, it's all well and good to give, but you have to be strong enough to realize when you don't have it to give, and, when it's more important to actually, focus on your own schedule and your own needs. And that's okay too. One of the big things that I learned, say specifically over the last 5 years, is that, there's a fire within us all, right? And, that fire can manifest as a couple of different things. It can either manifest as fear, or it can either manifest in motivation. And I genuinely think that, look, fire has the ability to do one of two things. It can, it can burn everything down around you, and you can sit there in fear and watch it happen. Or you could actually just say, you know what, it doesn't matter if I fail. It doesn't matter if I make a mistake, and you can just go get it. Fire can be controlled. And that I suppose that fire is almost like an analogy of just, of fear and anxiety. Because, it can do two things for you. It can burn everything down, or, it can keep you warm if you control it, so it's a mindset thing. You have to work in your mindset. You have to grow thick skin. You have to be willing to do things that and it is true, the other 99% of people don't, and that's what separates you from, your success from your ultimately what would be your failure if you choose not to do anymore. Because in my eyes, look, there's like failure only happens if you stop. If not, you've learned something, you learn from it, you rebuild the foundations, and you go again. um, most people don't ever truly get to experience the true, um, I suppose, the true version of themselves, because they stop when either it gets too hard or they stop when they fail. And to be honest, like, neither one of those scenarios are great.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Thank you so much for sharing this. I think it's very, very wise advice. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. So now, for the people that are listening and watching this and that want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
So we're on every social media platform: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You'll see us under the name Professional Hair Labs. My main hangout is usually LinkedIn. So you search my name, it'll come up. But yeah, look, I'm always open to a conversation. It's funny on LinkedIn. It's, most of the conversations you get is a pitch of some sort, and it's just like, you just don't have enough time in the day to even remotely look at them, never mind engage with them. So, yeah, look, those are the main channels we operate on.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'll put all that information in the description of the podcast. And thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.